Hey guys, so remember a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was a couple months ago, when I brought you Just to the Right of the Stove by Elizabeth Horan? Well, I've got another one of her this week. So, thanks for clicking on the longer review, and if you stumbled across just this one, I have a mini one as well, but this one hopefully will go a little bit more in depth. I'm reviewing Elizabeth Horan's poetry collection called Alcoholic Betty this week. And just like Just to the Right of the Stove, it is full of emotion. This is a poetry book that is so raw, so emotional, so vulnerable. It's a lot. It's really heavy. She talks about a lot of heavy things like hating herself, like mental health, like alcoholism, like slowly killing herself. There are a couple of poems that have the warning like this is about thoughts of suicide. And that's kind of a lot to take in, not gonna lie. So I think if you're interested, you kind of have to be in the right headspace for it. You can't just walk up to the book like, oh, this is going to be a collection of some like sad poems. It's more than that. It's very complex and nuanced. Like there is sadness, but there is pain, there's self-doubt, there's feeling pity. But the really interesting thing is underlying all of that is self-awareness, self-reflection, and a smidge of hope. Because even as Horan describes how crappy she feels about life or about herself, it's almost as though she's in the process of overcoming it. Actually, one of my favorite poems, I think, was near the end. It's about her relapsing. So you presume that she's been doing okay if it's a relapse. And you can feel her disappointment. You can feel that she is, not to be redundant, but disappointed in herself. But there's like this little bit of forgiveness or acceptance maybe, where she doesn't outright say, it's okay, you know what, I'll just try again tomorrow. It's not that obvious, but there's kind of that underlying vibe there. And so even though this collection is really heavy, I think it's really powerful because you can feel how much emotion Horan put into it. And I know I keep saying emotion, 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 but it's true. At the beginning, she talks about how she wishes she could have been a better mother, wife, sister, daughter, etc. At the end, she comes back to that saying like, thank you for being patient with me. And I think it's just so beautiful to have that self-awareness because I feel like in a lot of literature or even film, when you have a character who is troubled in the sense that like maybe they're an alcoholic or maybe they have some sort of other addiction, like, I don't know, I'm just thinking of that movie Palmer with Justin Timberlake. Like, you know, the mom is a hot mess. Like, she's a drug addict. She can't take care of her kid. And she's like, oh no, like I love my kid. I'm gonna get better. But you don't see that. And even though you don't explicitly see that with Alcoholic Betty, you know that it's possible. You feel that it's possible like from the get-go. And I love that underlying it all, Horan seems to feel that too. I think that self-awareness is so interesting and makes it so unique. Because the other thing is that with literature or film, with characters like the mom and Palmer that I just described, they're kind of flat. Like maybe you get a little bit of a backstory, like they had a terrible childhood and then that just like carried through and then they're just kind of a hot mess of a human. And we don't necessarily get that context with Horan. But those characters I feel like are just so impersonal. We just see their problems. Maybe they have a moment of vulnerability where they're like, oh no, but see, like, had a crappy childhood or whatever. But with this collection of poetry, you get a little bit of that throughout. You get that vulnerability. So it makes alcoholism and everything just that much more personal. And I think that's really powerful, because if you're not someone who has personally experienced it, or maybe you have personally experienced it, but you've only experienced it in one light, this gives it a different perspective. I mean, that's why we're all here, right? As the reading and writing communities. We're here because we love stories, whether that's told in film or in prose or in poetry. We're here to share our experiences, or fictionalized experiences, or imagined experiences. And we're here to learn from each other. And I think, well, I don't think Horan explicitly like set out to be like, this is what it feels like to live with alcoholism and mental health concerns and that sort of thing. But I think by her being brave and vulnerable and sharing that with us, it's a really great gift, because it gives more context. It shows that not everything is the way that we usually see it. And I think that's really cool. In terms of the poems themselves, they're a variety. Like, she doesn't stick to one style. A lot of them are borderline blank verse. Some of them have defined stanzas, some of them don't. Some of them have like a slant rhyme scheme. She never outright really rhymes. At least not that I noticed enough to be like, ah, yes, in this one poem. But I think I like the variety of style and structure, because nothing in life is consistently in the same style or structure. And so it just makes it a very personable experience. It brings you in because it almost feels like you're getting a glimpse into someone's train of thought. And it's just so personal. And it's just really, really beautifully written, because it's just so emotional. She pulls you in and you want to say, hey, it's gonna be okay. You want to say, I don't know if it's gonna be okay, but I'm here for you regardless. Like, it's just, you feel like you're there with her. You feel like you're there on the journey. And I think when poetry can do that, that's really powerful. So I do recommend Alcoholic Betty, with the caveat that if you're looking for a simple, straightforward poem, or if you're looking for poetry with structure, or if you're looking just for like feel-good poetry, which, like, who doesn't love that? This isn't the book. This isn't the poetry collection. This is really nuanced. It's really heavy. Even though there's that theme, or at least I perceived the theme of like self-awareness and a little bit of hope throughout, it's a lot to unpack, and that might be difficult for some readers, because it just might be almost too emotional. So do recommend, just be aware and have the openness to the poetry. So that's all I have for this week. Thank you so much. Next week I will be reviewing Jason Horton's Burn. It's the sequel to mine from however long ago. I kind of lost track, but I'm excited to talk to y'all about it next time. So in the meantime, happy reading and thanks.